For 3 years in a row now, my professors at my university asked me, among other students, to give some advice to the first semester students about studying. Things that we learned, things that we liked doing or that we didn't like doing. And for me, the most important thing when it comes to studying is learning how to learn. And it sounds so simple, but I still see high semester students sitting in the library like this in front of their books, reading through it over and over again, scrolling through their phone, totally frustrated, and I wonder why they don't have better grades. And it's basically, it's simple as it is. I never learned how to get things into their brain and get the information like stuck there. Remember things, not only till the next day, but till the next test or for years. So in this video, I will cover, first of all, why should you care about learning how to learn, then the don'ts, things that are definitely not helpful when it comes to learning, and then the most important part, there are tons of videos out there for different learning techniques, and I will show you my 5 favorite techniques that I discovered while studying. Why should you care about learning how to learn? So first of all, it makes learning so much more effective. I mean, when you know how to learn, then it saves you hours of studying time during the semester, but also in the exam period. You can leave the library earlier than others because you're just like done learning the stuff. So it saves you time, it's more effective, and therefore it's more fun to actually learn the way your brain likes to function and likes to absorb information. And now we come to part 2, things that you should do. There are so many things that our teachers told us in school, like techniques how to remember things, that are proven to be wrong by researchers. So the first thing is like reading things over and over and repeat. I see many students doing that. They're sitting somewhere with a book or with their self-written notes, reading them over and over. And the problem is they don't engage with what they read. They just like read through it always in the same way. They don't test themselves, like, did I really understood what I just read? And it's boring. You would fall asleep if I would do that. So never do reading and repeat. Of course, read things, maybe read them twice, but don't try to learn things through reading and repeat. The second thing, the second technique that doesn't really work is taking notes or visualizing things while you are reading a book or while you're listening to a lecture. So you might think, yeah, but I have courses where not all the information that I need is in the presentation, so I need to take notes. Totally true, I do it as well. But it's not a method to remember things. So don't trick yourself and think, oh, I did notes during the lecture, so now I'm done learning with this topic. That's not true. It's just like saving notes for later, and then you have to like use that material to actually learn with it. The third method that I wouldn't recommend at all, that teachers made me doing hundreds of times, is summing things up. Really, there are papers about it proving that summing things up, it has an effect on learning, but not that much. It's not worth the time. So don't try to just summing up things that are already written like in the same way but shorter, or same way but in your own words. There are much better techniques that you can use. And the next thing, the fourth thing, is highlighting. Don't use highlighters. It doesn't mean if you use them on your computer or in a book. It's also proven by science that highlighting things don't stick in your brain. They are just highlighted in your book, but not in your brain. And the last thing, the fifth thing, is self-explanation. So I did this for a long time, like trying to explain the things that I have to learn to myself. And this isn't a bad idea, I would say, because it's a step in the right direction, like a little bit of engaging with the content and trying to explain to yourself. The problem is you don't test yourself while doing that. So your brain kind of tricks you because you will avoid things that you don't understand that well, and you have no validation if you really understood what you just explained to yourself, especially if you do it like quietly in your brain. I will come to a much better version of this kind of explanation thing later. Let's go to the techniques. So these are like a little summary of my favorite techniques. There are tons of techniques out there on YouTube. Just check them out. YouTube itself is a good technique to learn stuff, like watching videos, absorbing the information in a different way than just from the book or from your notes. So my first technique and my favorite one are sketch notes. I call them sketch notes because I just try to sketch the information that I need to learn. So what I basically do is I try to find logos, visual representations of what I have to learn. And you might think, okay, I don't study art. There's nothing that I can visualize. I study computer science, and I do visualize all this dry computer stuff, even the really theoretical topics of my study or courses, I visualized. For example, in math, you can do a lot of proofs actually in a visual way instead of writing the formulas down. So I show you an example. So this is the cyber kill chain. This is a concept how attacks are carried out in cybersecurity. And I can't remember the names, like the different phases of the attack just like that. So I try to find symbols for every word. Something that for me personally, very important for me, is connected to that word. So for example, actions on objective, I put this like action thing. I don't know how it's called in English, the thing that you use in films to say action and go. So when I learned doing this, like thinking about it, engaging with the content, trying to link it to symbols, in my exam, I will probably not directly remember the words in the correct order, but I will remember those symbols. And sometimes I test myself and ask myself, okay, write down the phases for the cyber kill chain. And then I just try to get the symbols in the correct order and then find the words to it. This works so good, believe me. I do this for every topic, and I do this usually at the end of the semester before the semester period starts. And these sketch notes take me hours to produce. Really, it takes really long, but every time I did that for one lecture, I had 70 to 80% of the material already in my head. And it's amazing. I mean, the things were like saved, and I was able to concentrate on the more complex and harder topics. Okay, second technique, that's what, I don't know, it's somewhere out there. I think it's something like a basic principle. I call it the gold digger. It's about getting deeper into the topic than you have to. And your first thought might be, I have so much to learn, too much. I don't know when to do it. I have 300 pages of this for course A and 400 for course B, and I can't follow that. And you ask me to dig even deeper? Yes, I do, and here's why. this can be applied to all kinds of different like studies. Or think about, I don't know, maybe you're in politics and you want to understand the relationship between two countries, between two states. And it might be helpful to take a look into like, why is the situation today as it is? What is the history behind it? And then certain like positions of politicians might be obvious for you because they come from a specific like history. But I'm not in politics, just I try to explain it or to like transfer it to a completely different topic where I know nothing about. The third technique is what I call, or it's not what I call it, it's actually like a normal word, it's spider maps. This is like a different version, I wouldn't say version. So there are mind maps and there are spider maps, and they're there for different things. So you know these mind maps where you just try to like explore a topic, what is connected to this topic or to a certain question. But I don't like them that much for remembering things. And then I came across spider maps. So check them out on YouTube. There are tons of videos that explain them much better than I do. Just to give you a brief overview. So spider maps are a visual representation of relationships between concepts. So I think they're extremely helpful if you want to get an overview over a whole topic that you have to study. You can find out how are different concepts connected and how. And you can go really on a low detailed level, and then you can even try to link things to other learning materials that you have. For example, you go down to a certain topic and then you say, okay, this is on page blah 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 in the book or in this diagram that explains the connection between those two. Yeah, so those are spider maps. Check them out, they're great. And now I come to the fourth studying technique. This is not a technique, it's more like a range of things. So I'm talking about mnemonics. Said correctly? Mnemonics? Not sure, weird word for me. And metaphors. So all in all, like linguistics expressions. And you can use them so well for studying, and they're kind of playful, so it makes fun thinking about them. And I use them especially, first I use mnemonics for things that I really can't get into my brain. Sometimes I have this kind of stuff that is like super easy, but I just can't get it stuck. I'm trying to find a mnemonic or metaphor for it. And what I also like to do when I have like listings or concepts that are related to something, and I have to remember all the different concepts because I might be like asked, the professor might ask me in the test, like, what are the concepts of blah blah blah, and I have to know these 5. Then I'm trying to make a sentence for it. So for example, I had one sentence like, Marleen likes to drink wine in the evening or something, and every word, like every first letter of every word was the first letter of one of the concepts, and then I kind of linked them back to the words that I tried to learn. And this is kind of playful. I had one exam in my bachelor's where I did this with every exercise. Basically, it was about drinking wine and drinking gin, and I kind of linked all the different concepts that I had to learn with these weird sentences. Weird things stay in your mind, believe me. And it's quite fun to do this kind of stuff. So, and now I come to the 5th thing, and this is multi-channel learning. And maybe you heard of this concept of learning types, where you like separate learning types or people into different learning types, like the auditory learning type, the visual learning type. So I believed in this kind of concept for a long time, but I found out in preparation for this video that scientists never found evidence for this kind of like distinction of different learning types. So it might be probably something like a confirmation bias. So you once had a really nice diagram provided by a professor or teacher, and you thought like, oh my, I think I'm a visual learner. And then every time you see a good diagram, you're like, oh my god, yeah, I'm a visual learner, so this is my kind of learning, and then you learn better. I think it's a confirmation bias kind of thing. However, it is proven wrong. But it is definitely sure that multi-channel learning helps for remembering things. So what is multi-channel learning? You basically try to use your different kinds of channels to absorb information and use them together. And YouTube is a perfect platform for that. So you read something in your book, in your, I don't know, math book, and then you're like, okay, I read it, but now I need to engage with it, and then you Google for a YouTube video and watch it, and you use a different channel of absorbing the information. And now I come to the end, and I'm very sorry that I have to tell you that, but there's no way around repeating what you have to learn. So there's no magic, no tool, no technique. You just have to like repeat things. But there are fun ways to do it. So once you have this, I don't know, these kind of like sketch notes, I tend to like read them in the train where I was in the train, just like going through them, trying to remember the symbols. So testing yourself is very important. If you learn something, then you believe you understood it. But most of the times we have like little things that we didn't understand. Sometimes it's a link, sometimes like a whole topic that we kind of like blind out because our brain like fills that niche that we have. So what you can do is explaining it out loud, or even better, explaining it to a friend. Explaining to a friend is so helpful. I did this all the time in my bachelor's. I sat together with friends after like each of us learned for themselves and explained it to each other. And sometimes it was obvious that we didn't understand something correctly, and sometimes like the other ones like just asked questions like, can you explain me, you kind of rushed through that topic, can you explain me how that is connected to that? And then you were like, ooh, I can't. And this is exactly where you like put your notebook out, write it down, and repeat that kind of topic that you didn't read well. I hope you learned something from that. I really want to encourage you to try these techniques out. Maybe all the 5 that I told you are not working for you. That's possible, it's totally fine. Just go out to try to find things that you like, where you think, oh, that might work for me. Try them out and try to test yourself. And if you have fun using a specific learning technique, then use it. Use it. It will be so much better, believe me. And if you have any interesting learning techniques that I didn't cover, please put them in the comments below. I'm really curious to learn about them. Thank you.